Hello, I'm Joseph Malazzi, creator of Dark Matter, and you are listening to Kneel Before Pod.
Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good morning, good afternoon, good evening and good night. I am very much definitely not Craig leading this discussion about The Mandalorian Season 2. I am instead Aaron and will be with you for the next little bit of time. Your dose of Scottishness will instead be provided by my guest, Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hello, greetings.
So you have to represent Scotland today because Craig's not here and I can't do it.
I will try my best.
I don't know if there's a particular Scottish connection to The Mandalorian, but if not, you can tell me your own. Are you a big fan or partial fan into Star Wars?
I'm a big Star Wars fan. I've got to say, as much as I haven't enjoyed the recent film trilogy, I am still a fan of Star Wars. I'm not one of these people that say, that's it, I'm done, I'm never watching Star Wars again. You know, I'm taking my existing Star Wars and I'm going home. I'm very much in favour of some of the stuff that we've got. The Mandalorian especially, I think, is a good turn. My entry into Star Wars was watching them on VHS with my dad.
Wow.
Obviously too young to have seen them originally at the cinema, but got to see them with my dad. And then things like The Phantom Menace came out at the right time for me to be able to see at the cinema. So I got to see the prequel trilogy on the big screen, and of course I've watched everything else since then. In fact, since getting Disney Plus, I was able to watch the Clone Wars for the first time that I hadn't watched. I'd kind of dismissed as an animated thing, and sort of thought, oh, it's not going to be that great. It's a little animated show. In fact, I absolutely loved that, and ended up watching Rebels as well off the back of that, and then that was just in time for The Mandalorian.
Cool. That's you've collected quite a lot of them there. Then actually, I'm going to be a bit behind you, I think, because I've interestingly enough, let's bond. I watched the original Star Wars with my dad, so maybe it was just the thing to do. We're the right people to be doing this with that perspective. So I've got that connection to the childhood. I am very precious about the old films. I've probably got that hanging over my head with all this that I'll need to watch out for. It probably has coloured my ability to enjoy the later stuff, but I'm trying to stay open-minded on it. And I've actually got a couple of questions on that specific subject, specifically the last three films that I'm going to bring up, in fact, later on. So we're going to come back to that point. But yeah, I'm a bit behind you because I've not seen Clone Wars. I've seen Rebels. So if we need to get into the depths of some of these cameos from some of the older characters, you might be able to provide us a bit of extra info there that I can't. But I've got questions on that too. So look forward to that. Really going to use your expertise. I am supposed to put in somewhere some sort of spoiler warning at some point. Maybe I quite fancy a little Grogu noise, but so I might have to put that in. But before I do, I will ask you spoiler-free on Season 2 then. So we're going to assume the audience is coming to this podcast also having seen, Season 1, they've got that perspective. We might not talk about that too much. We'll focus on Season 2. But one of the key parts will be, did you have any expectations going in Season 2? And were they actually met? And did you enjoy it because or even despite them?
So I had some expectations. So before they started running all the press and everything for it, obviously we already knew that they were going in the hunt of a Jedi. And then, of course, we found out through some of the pre-press and the warm-up that we were going to get some Ahsoka through this. So I knew that we were going to get to see Ahsoka on screen. We were going to get to see some ongoing adventures. I wasn't really sure what direction they were going to go. I was like, is the whole thing going to be the hunt for the Jedi, or is it going to sort of branch off in the way that Season 1 did, where it was sort of lots of little mini stories, really, with one sort of overriding arch? So that's kind of what I was expecting. And my expectations were met, and I enjoyed the first season. I enjoyed this season. I do think there was a slight detriment to this season where I think maybe it spent a bit more time than expected setting up other things, but we will discuss that when it comes up.
Sure. I do think I see everywhere that season 2 seem really hard. I think that's true. I think that's actually something I could sort of stolen from any discussion, though, the idea that the second thing is harder than the first because of expectations. So I think I probably felt the same way about the earlier episodes of this season, that somehow it didn't hit as hard to me as the season 1 did. And I thought, why is that? Is that my expectations? And we can get into the detail of it. But what I would say is, for the purposes of leading this podcast, I've rewatched the first 6 episodes, and I got a different feeling the second time round than I did the first time round. I enjoyed it a lot more watching it the second time round, and I still don't know why. I think it must be something to do with expectations, but I definitely agree with you. I had that feeling. There's something weird here. There's something about the first episodes. Why I'm not enjoying them as much. And then that went away on the second watch. Have you second watched anything yet, or do you not bother with it?
So I almost did an immediate second watch of the first season. So I watched the first season sort of as it came out, and then did a rewatch of it. Almost straight after, because I wanted to see how it all sort of flowed together if you watched stuff back to back. And I got a better appreciation for the first season the second time round. And I think it was because some of it's what you're saying, where you sort of know what to expect. So you know it's not fast paced throughout. Because I think some people were expecting something like The Mandalorian to be, shoot first, ask questions later through the entire season. Yeah. Whereas you get something that sort of is, it has those moments, but it also can plod along in its own way, and it takes its time establishing something. And I think on a second watch, you're able to appreciate some of the little details that they've put in as well, which you maybe miss because they've got something glowy and shiny in front of you, so you're paying attention to that, and then you kind of miss some of what they've done in the background, the little things that they drop as they go through, which I think you appreciate more on a second viewing.
Yeah, maybe that's it then, actually. Maybe you've just answered that question for me. It's a good job you're here. I'm glad I invited you. Yeah. I might try and revisit that in my own head as we go through some of this and see if I can pick up on some of those little details then. But in order to get to that, I do need my spoiler klaxon warning. I'm totally going to go for Grogu. Expect Grogu.
Systems and mechanics.
With Grogu lighting the way for us, there's something I want to get done first, because I think if I don't do it first, it's going to haunt us throughout the entire podcast with people going, why haven't they brought this up yet? Which is the main cameo, the clear first violin cameo that is Luke coming in. And there's a few parts of this that I've seen all over the internet upsetting people in terms of it being simply Luke all the way through to the uses of the CGI and the actor. So I guess before we go any further, we kind of have to clear the air on this. Are you a loved it or hate it, and why?
I am in. If I was to put myself in a camp, I would put myself in the love it camp.
Oh.
I wouldn't say that a lot of people treat the final scenes of the season like it has saved Star Wars. I've seen that so often, and I'm not in that camp. I'm not in this has redefined everything and has fixed humanity. I am in the I don't mind this cameo, and I quite liked it. It's one of the cameos in the season that I have the least qualms about. It kind of makes sense in canon for me that it would be Luke who would find would find Grogu, who would find Baby Yoda. We know from the films that he ran a Jedi Academy. We know that he was training young Force sensitives. if someone's going to reach out and help a Force sensitive that is in trouble, it's going to be Luke. So it kind of made sense to me. There's lots. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's lots of other Jedi out there, and maybe you can make an argument for it makes the universe too small. And we say that quite often on this podcast about lots of different shows, is it makes the universe, you're talking about space. There's a lot of room out there in space. There's a lot of people out there in space. Is this the only Jedi that could respond? No. But equally, if they had just invented another random Jedi, people would have went, that's ridiculous. It should have been Luke.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked the Luke cameo. As soon as I saw the X-Wing coming in that scene, and they're going, oh, it's just a lone X-Wing, I was like, oh my God, they're doing it. So it was, yeah. And then, obviously, the bonus of an R2-D2 cameo, who, of course, is, the one that we were all waiting for, really. I mean, you're saying it was Luke, but it's R2-D2, so sorry.
Yeah, get your supporting cast right. I remember that.
Yeah. How about you? How did you feel with it?
Well, I mean, the thing of it is, I do underappreciate some of these arguments about how it's so small, and so what's going on. But the thing of it is, we're not watching The Expanse here, the gritty realism. We're watching space opera. And in space opera, like opera, the main character turns up. That's the genre you've bought into. And if you've not bought into this Star Wars as space opera, then what are you doing here? I mean, there is a genre discussion to be had later, and I'm going to come back to that. But if I accept that the whole universe is built around the whole principle of space opera, then there is no reason why Luke shouldn't turn up. But that's part of a large discussion aside. If I come back to my personal feeling about it, I have to say I wasn't as smart. I wasn't as on the ball as you. I didn't get it from the X-Wing. I probably should have done, but I got it from the Black Glove.
Okay.
Which is a bit later on, and that was actually quite interesting because either way, I think both of us managed to get anticipation into our watch. You got it a lot earlier than me, and you'll have enjoyed that for a lot longer. That ride, that hit, that wave of, I know what's coming, it will have lasted with you. But I still got enough of it because when he's going through the Dark Troopers, I'm still thinking, yeah, I know who this is. This is amazing. I still got that. And because it invoked that feeling, I was all for it. And the rest of it wasn't necessarily therefore any concern to me. So the CGI usage, I don't care. I have a feeling that I would care if it was truly awful. So I don't want to dismiss the whole idea of the use of CGI. It is distracting because I totally get it. But the big arguments that I've seen before on some of these other shows, like I could totally see his moustache or where his moustache was. I'm like, I couldn't. I was not watching his upper lip. When Superman comes on, I'm not the first thing I look for is not what's on his upper lip. That's just not what I'm going for. So it's the same thing when Luke turns up. I'm not analyzing his face. I knew it. I could see it. My brain said that CGI. I knew it straight away. But it's one of those things where I'm riding this anticipation of I was waiting for him to put the hood down. And that was such a big feeling to see that the whole idea of, and now I'm disturbed to see CGI, it didn't really trigger for me at all. So I did enjoy it. I did like it because it's space opera. For all those things you've said about what he is doing and where he would be in the plot and what he's going to be looking to further with his Jedi Academy, it makes sense. He didn't feel crowbarred in. As you say, if somebody's going to respond to this call, who are you expecting? So this is exactly who I was expecting. So right place, right time, fits the background plot that's been established in the universe, felt my anticipation rise, and I got the payoff. And I can say that I told you in our chats beforehand I was going to bring it up, and this is the right time, by the way. The only way this feeling was improved for me was when, and I'll have to put this in the show notes, when I saw the whole scene replayed synced up to the song I Need a Hero from Bonnie Tyler. And I want everybody who is listening to this podcast to go on YouTube and watch that because it's amazing. So, in summary, the only thing that improved it to me was by almost making it into a dance number. Otherwise, generally perfect. So
it is a very well done edit, I've got to say. So thanks for sharing that with me. That made my day when I saw that one. No, it's very good. I mean, I'm completely with you. I get that there's a slight uncanny valley to it. And okay, if you pause it and you freeze frame it and you rewatch it 20 million times, you're going to start to see some rough edges to CGI. But let's just appreciate what they're actually doing with that CGI at that time.
Yes.
It's, let's bow down to the computer masters who managed to do these kinds of things, because we're sitting watching them on 4K TVs going, oh, that's a bit, that looks a bit rough. Okay. I'm accepting it for what it is and what they can do. I mean, we've seen a lot worse in other films and other things, and this is happening in a TV show. So I'll accept it. And the fact that you've highlighted that it's space opera as well, I often forget that it is like a space opera, and then you start thinking about a soap opera. You start thinking of like EastEnders or whatever, and of course you would get the drum crash finale of who comes through the door, but it's Luke Skywalker. Boom, 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 boom. What's going to happen tomorrow? Oh my God, I must tune in. So yeah, it's I am your father. Dumph, dumph,
exactly. Yeah, this has been established for
it's
40 years. Yeah.
It's that thing. And she's your sister. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, it's space opera. And when you highlight that, in fact, maybe I'm not going to be able to take any Star Wars seriously anymore without superimposing that in my head every time there's these little drops.
Oops.
Yeah, I've just ruined Star Wars for myself and listeners. I know, I'm so sorry. Maybe we need to edit all that out. I don't know.
Oh no, never.
It's all coming out. I've now turned it into spacey standards, and it's rubbish. But yeah, I was absolutely for the cameo. I was absolutely for R2-D2 being there. What that means going forward is interesting in my head, because it's almost the end of our dynamic duo setting that we've had.
Yeah,
I don't see how you could have Din sort of go off and go, no, Luke, you're a rubbish trainer. I'm taking him with me. I'm taking him back. I'm taking the apprentice back. Bye-bye. I don't think you can do that. And it's one of the dynamics that has kept people tuned into this program. I know that I'm saying tuned in an online sense here, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's kept people watching. Folk are there for, what cute thing is Baby Yoda going to do in this episode? And what line are they going to get? And what sort of little... And have we come to the end of that particular part of the story? Because there will be some people who are watching for that dynamic, that you've had that father-son dynamic that's kind of developed.
Yeah, and that is a noticeable thing in a lot of other shows. I always actually go back to Dark Matter when I think about this, that it's a good example of, during the first series, they set up a style of show. And then the second series, it was a completely different style of show. And I think that did actually hurt it. I don't think it was an automatic mistake, but it just seems to be one of those things that if you're going to do this, you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure that you replace it really well. I mean, there's a reason why the old Simpsons joke is we change everything whilst leaving it exactly the same. That's a known thing that you have to be taken care of. So if they did then give you a different show, do you think that would ruin it for you?
Oh, I don't think it would ruin it for me. I think you can see, I mean, I know we're going to come on to it later on, but I think you can see the path they're going to travel. And I also think, as much as it was, you got some fun out of Baby Yoda and there was some cute things, you sit and you go, well, what further could they do with the two of them? Is that story finished? And I don't know what else they could do to expand a character who can't really talk, a character who can't maybe develop in that same way, whose relationship you can't take that much further forward than what they've got. Is very nice what they've got, And I think there's some brilliant development through this season with the two of them and the lengths that Din will go through to protect him and rescue them. But, when you go from what began in season 1 to what you've got at the end of this season and the scenes and the steps that Din takes in this season, I think I just don't know how much further you can go with them despite that relationship. I don't...
Yes.
Apart from keeping him as a continual MacGuffin where someone's constantly trying to capture him.
Yeah.
And that gets boring after a while. That's a bit like, the superhero's girlfriend always getting caught. The villain, by the end of the season, the villain's always dangling the girlfriend off the side of a building while on the other hand, he's got a button for detonating a bomb halfway across the city. It's that kind of thing. And you can only do that so many times before it gets really boring. And I think maybe they've done the natural out at this point without writing it into the ground, maybe.
The consensus on the online seems to be people reckon that there's no way they're going to get rid of Grogu because it would be too harmful. But yeah, the dynamic, I think, has to change. I would agree, I think, that the dynamic has been slowly changing already. We've been building through to something else for long enough in season 2, which might not sound like a lot, but when I think about it, is 50% of the plot that has been built. Oh, well, actually, that's not even true. They introduce even the Darksaber, of course, at the end of season 1.
Yeah, the end of season 1, yeah.
So you are even expecting it. So you are actually knowing that something else is coming. Because he's not looking for the Darksaber. There's nothing connected to Mandalore. He's not trying to get back to his home planet. So you're already on last episodes of season 1 going, there's something else going to happen here. So, yeah, I think they've already been building it away. So what you've said sounds right. They have chosen to not let something drag on, end it before it gets stale, which is a good idea. I think I'll stay on things that might make it worse, though, for a bit longer, just to keep it negative, because as I'm sure people are expecting from me, if they listen to Craig too much, don't do that, people. But things that could make things worse still, though, on the idea of bringing in R2 and to side character Luke, is there any danger here that it's been done just because the fan base would be upset if they didn't? And do you reckon that is blocking the expansion into other people, new people, that you would have preferred to see?
Oh, that is a good question. I said when I talked about Luke, I said he wasn't the cameo that peeved me off the most through the whole thing. And I do think there was a slight sacrificing this season of Din's story and the characters that he maybe would have been introduced to in favour of, we need to introduce Ahsoka for an Ahsoka TV show,
yes,
and Boba Fett for a Boba Fett TV show,
yes,
and we need to introduce this and this and this and this because we're wanting to spin these off into something.
Yep.
And that sort of disappointed me a little bit.
Right.
As much as I enjoyed seeing some of these characters on screen, and I'm not saying that they're bad portrayals, I'm not saying that I think, in my opinion, last season what we got, he got introduced to all his friends. Like, every episode was he met a new friend, and by the end they united to do the thing, and it was great.
Yeah. Getting
to see that, even the assassin droid got a character moment by the end of the season. You're like, yes, brilliant. That's great. It was sort of let's go back and collect everyone that we've met on our journey who's going to help us out as friends. And yeah, you kind of got that a bit this season, but at the same time, you sort of feel that it made sense, some of the characters that they had in there. I'm not saying that they grabbed them out the air and went, oh, yeah, that'll do. Let's introduce them. They all make sense in canon in a way.
Mm.
But I don't think some of them were 100% necessary in the way that they were there. The one that peeved me off the most was Boba Fett. I've never had the Boba Fett thing. Never had it. Now, maybe it's because I'm not into the big, apparently he's massive in the expanded universe and people have written tons of cool stuff about Boba Fett. For me, the last time I see Boba Fett is Han Solo, while blinded, knocks him with a stick and he goes, "Wah!" and falls into the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah.
That is what happens to Boba Fett, right? It's not been edited out. As far as I'm aware, George Lucas still hasn't went back to the tapes and CG'd some cool stunting for Boba Fett in place of him screaming into the distance as a blind man hits him with a stick, right? That's not been edited out. So in my head, his story ends, sadly, with ending up in the Sarlacc pit. That's in my head, that's where he's ended up. Now, he might have done tons of cool stuff before then, and if they made a show about all the cool stuff he did before then, I'd accept it. I'm kind of a little bit now of the, no, don't try and rewrite him now. We saw what happened to him. He got hit by a blind man and fell into the pit. That's how he ended. It's a very sad end to an epic hero, but that's the way he went. Don't now try and edit him out and turn him into something that he wasn't. That kind of annoys me a little bit, because I kind of feel we've already got our bounty hunter. He's the star of the show. The title is about him. You know, we've got that character. We don't need another one.
It's actually quite noticeable as well that he has no role at the end. I mean, okay, he technically has a role at the end because he's flying his ship, but he doesn't seem to have a plot role at the end because he's not on the bridge of the Imperial cruiser facing off the Dark Troopers. So he doesn't have a role. You know, he's just given a place, and that's so. It's so obvious. So why wouldn't you just jump? Just come on board. It's fine. Why, you don't have to run away. I mean, yeah, there was a plot reason why he did, but no, I don't think he really did. And I'm going to agree with you on that, and I'm possibly going to take it a step further, which hurts me slightly actually, because I don't necessarily think I needed to see Ahsoka. Which is weird because I really, really, really enjoyed that episode and thought it was amazing. But if I try and step back a bit, I would have happily cut Boba Fett, Fennec Shan, and Ahsoka and kept it all on the main plot line of the people that we know already being the ones on the bridge. I kind of wanted to see the characters from season 1 be the ones on the bridge, and we did get that with I don't know how many of the season is it just one character from season 1 that's in the final bridge fight? Is it just Cara Dune?
Well, Fennec technically is season 1, isn't she?
Yeah, I suppose.
So Fennec technically, if you're wanting to expand it a little bit, and you do see other characters from the first season throughout sort of dribbled, but not to the same extent that you had through the rest, I think.
I
think you're right. It's Cara and Fennec are your only ones from things. See, Fennec is who I would have replaced Boba Fett with. Right, I think in an early draft of this season, it would be Fennec that you would get there, not Boba Fett. That's why I kind of think that of all the characters, the old characters that they've brought back that you could replace with current equivalents, you know, Ming-Na Wen did such a good job in the first season with that character and sort of establishing that character, and then in this season is reduced to being Boba Fett's sidekick in this one. And you sort of go, no, she could have been something in there. She could have been in a draft. You know, she could have been the one that she was tracking Baby Yoda for the money, and then suddenly turns around a bit like the Mandalorian does, and go, oh, actually, you know, I realize the reason that this former Empire guy wants it. I don't want that either. You know, have that switch around. Have another character that switches around. And I didn't see why making her a Boba Fett accessory sort of made sense. And I'm kind of with you with Ahsoka, as much as it pains me.
I know,
as much as it pains me, because again, I think it was a great portrayal of Ahsoka. I'm not with. There's a few people that go, "Oh, rubbish! It's not the same." Blah, blah, blah. I wasn't expecting it to be 100% the same. It's not the same. It's not the same voice actors. The voice is going to be different, of course, and they're not going to look 100% identical, because one is an animation where you can make the animation do whatever you want. The other one is a person wearing a very heavy prosthetic.
Yes.
You know, you need to work around these kind of things. It's not, it's never going to be perfect. And if they had made her a CGI character to try and get around some of the limitations, you can imagine that the uproar from that as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I was absolutely fine with the portrayal. I thought she looked great. Again, I sort of went, well, did it need to be Ahsoka? Did we need Ahsoka for that one episode? As much as I liked it, could that information have been delivered in some other way, maybe about the, could you have skipped straight to the, I've heard a rumor about a stone that if a Force sensitive goes near it, then other Jedi will return, to pick them up. That kind of rumor you could have got from somewhere else.
And it looks like it fails because nobody comes to the planet, or they have to run away. And he's, I must get back to that planet, but I can't because I need to rescue the kid first. So I think he definitely could have done exactly as you described. And the thing is, the weird thing is, I don't necessarily think I'm saying I want to get rid of people as the problem. I think I do want to say that it's more that I would have liked to have seen more of what you've already introduced. I mean, I would have even been happy to see Migs Mayfield on that bridge, because he would have been the fatalistic guy. They're all going, we might survive. And he'd go like, nah, we're all dead. Dark Troopers, we're over. Make your peace with it. He's has this very realistic attitude to it all, although that was possibly already given by Cara Dune. But the thing is, I like those characters that they have set up. So there's not really much space here in an 8-episode show. So I do want to make it clear that I don't think what I saw was bad. As I say, like yourself, I loved the Ahsoka whole episode. But I did really think it was a shame to just quickly go back to the old planet to get the old characters in for one episode, really, and then a bit of a cameo elsewhere. Because it really felt like we were just cameo. Is that even a verb? I can't even say it. Bringing in our old characters as a cameo, rather than acknowledging them as real first-tier characters of this show. So it's just a shame that I didn't get to see more of Mings. It's a shame I didn't get to see more of Cara Dune. It's a shame I didn't get to see more of list your favorite character here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually liked what I saw, but I do believe I missed out because they were really, as you say, trying to build up the spin-offs, clearly trying to build up more and more of the spin-offs than giving you the universe that you'd already come to see. So it is painful. It really was painful to say, oh yeah, would I take those ones out? Although possibly I would completely agree with you on Boba Fett. He is a fan character, but he doesn't have a place. He's not on the bridge at the end, and I can't get past that. If he's not part of the final scene, and he's not even helping them out like Fennec was, is he necessary, given that, as you say, he's already a bounty hunter, and we already have one of those? He's a Mandalorian. I got about 4 of those. He's a mean guy that shoots people. Yeah, I got one of those. And yeah, once you start listing them all out, you think this was for the fans, was it? But
I mean, my thing is, it's, okay, they want to do a TV show about him. Doing the run-up to Empire. Set whatever Boba Fett thing you want to do it before Empire. That's fine. There's no reason you can't do that. Make it before he ends up in a Sarlacc pit. But you don't need to introduce him in this specific timeline, I don't think. I think there's so much that you could do with, prequel stuff with him that would be interesting to see rather than this. But, maybe they have a grand plan. Maybe they've got this all sketched out on a whiteboard somewhere where there's interlinking things and reasons why these characters are all about in this particular timeline.
And at the moment, I would say they've earned my trust that they do. I've watched so many series where you think there's a plan at the start, and then some idiot from the production team goes on Twitter with his interview and go, "Oh yeah, we didn't know anything about what we were doing. Aren't we amazing for having come up with what we did?" And you go, "You betrayer. I hate you. I trusted you." And you've literally pointed out that there's no point in me watching the next season because you don't know what's happening. So they've got my trust that they are building to something, but I think you might be underestimating the strength of feeling of the Boba Fett fans who have currently taken out a bounty on your head because they cannot tolerate the idea that he went into a Sarlacc and didn't come out, because it was comical. He's this really cool bounty hunter, but his death was a joke, and that hurts, So
it was a comedy skit. I mean, his arms were waving. As he does it. I mean, I'm pretty sure, did they not CG in the Sarlacc making a burp noise as he went down? I mean, I'm really sorry, but that is the last I remember of what happened to Boba Fett.
Yeah.
You can't then tell me that he then waited years and years and years to get his armor and just didn't take it off the guy that was there with it. He waited until it flew off world and then went, "Oh, well, I guess I better go and get it now."
Yeah. No, he just hung. He got drunk with Jawas and the fan people, and that was enough for him for a while. But
became
then he
an expert in robotics.
Exactly.
Did it all.
No, all I'm saying is watch your back, because there are people coming for you.
That's true, actually. And if anyone's looking for me, my name is Craig McKenzie. That is Craig McKenzie.
Nice. Right, let's get you onto a different topic so we can steer you away from the danger zone. I did say I wanted to come back to space opera, I think. Or if I didn't say that, I meant to say that, and so I'm doing it. And the reason being is because I think one of the reasons that I enjoyed season 2 the second time around is because I got rid of one of my expectations. And one of my expectations from season 1 was the genre, that it was a Western. It was purely a Western, and I loved that. And I think it was difficult for me to give it up. Once I knew I was giving it up for something that was good, it was a much easier exchange to make then. In fact, it was an exchange rather than giving something up. But it was so noticeable that you're seeing things that are branching away from Western. So it took me a while to actually get my head around this. But I don't think they went against Star Wars. I think they just explored Star Wars more. So I think George Lucas himself is very much in numerous interviews on record saying, "I've been influenced by," and he's listed Westerns, samurai films, which of course have a very strong connection to Westerns when you see the development of film. And then of course it is space opera. And it was, I honestly thought when they were putting the other episodes in, that, they're taking away my Western. But more, I think it was just going around the others. But I guess my main point then is I struggled to see the Western go away originally. And if I hadn't have rewatched it, I think that would have hit me hard. So my question to yourself is, when you started to see the samurai stuff coming in and the pulp stuff coming in, and of course the space opera comes in right at the end in the final episode, if not before, when you saw those other 3 connected genres coming in, did it hit you like it hit me, or were you like, no, I'm watching Star Wars and I'm fine with that?
I think I noticed a slight tonal shift, but I was fine with that. I think I wasn't expecting it. I mean, you had such a heavy Western opening. You have a literal sort of gunslinger sheriff at the beginning, with
Timothy Olyphant, and that's what he plays. So yeah.
Yeah, it was like the perfect gunslinger intro. I mean, you reached peak Western with episode 1. He's in a bar, the doors open, and the gunslinger walks in wearing Mandalorian armor. Yes. Okay. Totally for that. yeah, so you got some of that tone, and I don't think it fully went away. There was a few episodes where it dropped a little bit, but then you get kind of train heist, a mine. You know, they take a bit of a mine heist. They didn't do a prison break this episode. Well, they kind of did a prison break, but not quite.
Yeah,
it was an official prison break. There was paperwork signed and such. You know, but you know they still did a little bit of that. So they had elements of Western through it. But I get what you're saying. It wasn't 100% in that sort of wheelhouse throughout it, but it didn't break me up in the same way. I think because tonally, some of the episodes, even in season 1, tonally, some of the episodes would be a little bit different. So I think I was used to that. And I was also used to the fact that the pace kind of switches between episodes in The Mandalorian. You don't really get a big, heavy gun battle episode, then followed by another heavy gun battle episode. You get a more melodic sort of plodding episode where they're establishing a bit more before it then lets loose again in a follow-up episode.
You're right that I definitely acknowledge that it is Western throughout, because it opens with the marshal. That's definitely us, and then the prison break, and they're breaking into a prison almost when they're breaking into the Imperial compound. It's not a prison, but it feels like they're trying to break into the compound, and then they have to try and escape. And the tragedy that episode 6 is a last stand. 3 people on a mountain fight a horde of angry, evil minions coming at them. So it is definitely there. But episode 2, I couldn't quite place, and that threw me, I think, because they're underground fighting a huge spider creature. And it does connect to Star Wars. I can't say it doesn't, because there's the point where the Millennium Falcon flies into a huge space worm. And when you're a kid, you're like, yep, okay, that's fine. I totally get that. But when you go back as an adult, you think, I'd forgotten there was a big space worm in this that has no other real meaning. And so it is space opera. And you come right back and it slams you in the face and says, no, this is what I am, don't forget. But I'd seen 9 episodes before that where it was Western, even if it was changing pace, obviously Westerns of different paces. But then huge white space spider. And I was like, what? Where did that come from? It was such a massive change. I mean, there were good parts in it, especially at the final bit where he's talking to the X-Wing pilots and you get the guy that goes, these are difficult times, or these are troubled times, or something. And I'm back in a Western again. Gotcha. We have to make compromises because we're on the frontier and it's not nice out here and the rules don't apply. It's not black and white, despite what the stormtroopers make it look like. It is actually definitely a grey area. But I got these points where I just got knocked off track, I think, and I really struggled to get back into it, and I didn't. In fact, it was only when I got to episode 5 that there was a clear and obvious new style right from the start, and it pulled me back in. I think actually episode 5, The Jedi, is possibly my favorite episode, and it feels weird because it feels like it's almost disconnected from the rest of it, but it was so stylish. And Ahsoka is such a samurai, and I haven't seen many of the cartoons, but one of the cartoon, you can tell me which one it is actually, in which of the cartoons does an older Obi-Wan Kenobi meet up with an older Darth Maul and they have their final showdown? What's that from? Is that Rebel?
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars. Yeah.
And when you see, I mean, I remember having a discussion with Craig about this as well, because he hated this part, and I loved it. That final fight, I think he was expecting a massive pitched battle between the two of them to really play out and show off Jedi skills. But when I saw the two of them go against each other in that single moment, they stand off against each other, they stare at each other for a short moment, and then they go at each other like samurai. I'm better than you. Single cut, you go down, I'm still standing. And I just thought, again, that's such a stylish moment that fits in with the very character of everything these people are, fitting the background and fitting the characters and the genres that have been promised to me since I watched this as a kid. Just seeing Ahsoka come back in then as a samurai, I thought, yeah, that's who the Jedi are. And it really made me stare and watch this episode, even if it stood out alone, as something that was just so well crafted. The lighting, just seeing the light of the lightsabers shining on Ahsoka's face, and then she cuts the light to move off into the shadows, and the bad guys are terrified of this thing moving in the shadows. All of these individual points seem to be so well crafted that I was pulled back into this new genre. And even that was kind of a lurch. I've been pulled off genre by the big spider. Then I've been pulled off genre again in another direction by Ahsoka being a samurai. And I was just a bit dizzy, I think, that I didn't know where I stood. But ultimately, to get to the end of that long and pointless story, I was offered a new thing, and I liked it. So it was an exchange, but not a loss. But did you feel any of those jumps, or was it because you said you saw the changing pace that you thought, no, it's just changing pace?
I did get those little jumps. I've got to correct myself, first of all, and I've got to say it was, in fact, Rebels, and I'm an idiot because Ezra was there. Therefore, Rebels. Okay. Sorry. So that's me being an idiot. For everyone that's just been shouting at their own headphones for the last 5 minutes, it's not Clone Wars, it was Rebels. However, I did see him last in Clone Wars because that's the season that just finished. Anyway. Carrying on, my part of the thing. You're completely right. I don't know how I'd forgotten Space Spiders, but The Passenger is that episode. And this kind of leads into a bit of what I was saying earlier on. I like these little standalone stories. The Passenger, I get what you're saying. It's off the wall in comparison to the rest of the season. If it was in other shows or some other shows, I would almost criticize it for being a time sink for the writers. You know, you get these little bottle episodes where they go off and do something that's completely unrelated to the plot. Completely unrelated, but it's because they've got to hold and bide their time until they've got enough to do the season finale sort of thing. So they'll have some rubbish side quest that they go off on. Whereas that episode, I actually really, really enjoyed. I mean, apart from the fact that Grogu was eating her children, which I mean, I will take a lot. Grogu is very, very cute, but I couldn't get away from thinking he's sneakily eating her kids. Yes. I couldn't do that. Those spiders were as scary as anything. Sure. And when you saw the Grogu sitting there and it's the tiny little eggs and he's like, oh, I like the taste of these. And then they all start cracking. And we've seen enough films to know what that is a bad sign. Yeah. That is a bad sign. You know, seeing that rampage and that escape and the way it ends with the X-Wings track him down and go, all right, we're letting you off. Are you going to help me? No, we're just going to leave you here now, mate. We're off. You know, don't get in our way again. And then they fly away. I liked it. I mean, it was just a sign of like the Razor Crest being the unluckiest ship in all of Star Wars. Yeah. I've got to say that is now just a thing. It's the unluckiest ship ever. That episode, really, really liked. The Ahsoka episode, like I said earlier on, you're completely correct. It was so atmospheric. The shots, the cinematography in this whole season has been fantastic. But the opening of that episode in particular, with the sort of fog and the battlefield and her sort of sneaking in and out, and the way that was done was just amazing. The whole aesthetic for that episode was great. Really, really well put together. And when I think about like those two episodes in particular, you can think about them as if, because with The Passenger, it's a character that you've never been introduced to before, and it's a kind of side quest of if you take her home, she's going to be able to give you the information to get onto the next part of your journey, sort of quest. It's a character you've not been introduced to before, and that's great, and it leads you on. And if that Ahsoka episode hadn't been Ahsoka, if it had just been a other Jedi or Force sensitive who survived the Purge somehow, because there seems to be a lot of them floating about now. Yes. if it had just been another Jedi that had survived the Purge, I still think that would have been a cracking episode, even if it hadn't been Ahsoka. And you'd put someone else at the heart of that, a similar-ish character. I think, again, the same people that then criticize it for being Ahsoka would then be, well, why wasn't that? You know, why wasn't that dual lightsaber wielding Force sensitive Ahsoka? It could have been, you know, we got cheated out of that. So, yeah, I kind of get a little bit of, again, universe being too small, etc., etc. However, I still think it was a really good standalone. Even if you delete the fact it's Ahsoka from your head and you go, it wasn't Ahsoka, it was another Jedi.
Yeah.
I think that leads into what season 1 was, which is he goes on adventures and meets characters that further his plot and that he can call on in future if he wants to. And I think it worked in that sort of format. It was a one-episode thing. It wasn't that Ahsoka was there and then Ahsoka stuck around for the rest of the season. It was a one-and-done kind of thing, which led on in a similar way to the first season.
So
I don't know if that completely answered your question there, but
well, I think what I've picked up on is that what I heard there was you don't think it's a betrayal of anything. That it does actually match up with what we have been offered before, in that he's going around meeting individuals and he does a deal with them, or he makes friends with them, achieves something and moves on in some sort of the bounty hunter version of a little hobo. He's picking up little bits and bobs here and moves on to the next one. But so if it's not a betrayal, if they are staying core to the true value, then it hasn't changed at all. So even though I'm seeing new genres, what I think you've just told me is the genres are just the foreground that is the cinematography that you're seeing. It's the lens you're looking through. But if you look at the plot behind it, it stayed true to form all the way through. And if you are saying that, and I'm totally putting words in your mouth here, but I picked that up on you and picked that up because I thought, actually, I think I do agree with that. And I think that's potentially why I was able to get back on track in the later episodes, and why I was more accepting the second time round watching, because I think I saw more of that. The foreground distracted me, but when I went back and watched it again a second time, I was no longer distracted by the foreground. I could see through to the plot behind it and realize season 2 is giving me what season 1 promised. So I think it does answer my question. It does it in that way. I don't know if that's what you meant to tell me there, but I think that's what I've combined in my head what you said and what I said to get to that realization. So I'm happy with that. I feel better now. I feel like I have managed to reconnect with the episodes 1 to 4 in a good way, rather than just a sort of a random way. I'm not going to leave genre alone though quite just yet. I do have one more thing on it, because it's still in my head as a thing, because they have played around with genres so much. It to me raises the question that they might play around with genres more. That this doesn't necessarily need to stay foreground. The lens you're looking through, it could actually go deeper, and we've had promise of other series. Something like Andor could be a spy thriller when they expand upon that character. They could go full Battlestar Galactica with the Rangers show that's coming up. Lando is got to be a heist film or a gangster film or something. Surely he's just got to be the good guy rogue that we were sort of promised with Han Solo, but then didn't think we actually got to see. Maybe that's our second shot at that. So as my last thought on genre, would you want them to push the boat out more and go into military, spy or gangster? Or do you think staying with the space opera and just teasing Western samurai is the right way to go?
Well, for the other shows?
For the other shows, because I think Mandalorian
your pitch has got me, I've got to say. I do want to see those different tones, but in a Star Wars universe, in a Star Wars setting. I don't think there's anything that says that you can't. I mean, if you look at a lesser extent, I suppose, to Star Trek, for an example, putting the two together on a podcast is very deadly. However, I'm going to attempt it.
It's all right, you've got a bounty on your head. So I've
got a bounty on my head already. I'm going down with guns blazing. But you've seen recently in Star Trek, they've done Lower Decks.
Yes.
Which is animated and comedy and sort of zany and off the wall, but in that same universe, using that same background. I mean, folk will argue whether it's canon or whether they actually exist or whatever. I don't really mind.
Yeah.
But it's using the same toolbox. You've got all the same toys to play with. And I don't see a reason why that can't happen with Star Wars. Of course, Lando being a sort of heist, like some form of space hustle. I'm quite happy to watch Space Hustle with Lando, Lando's charm in the middle of that. Yes, totally want to see that. Andor being a sort of spy thriller sort of thing, infiltrating different ranks, getting his way about. I really don't know what to expect with some of these things. I think you're right when you tag the Obi-Wan show as being maybe more Star Wars traditional. I'd be way more surprised if Obi-Wan and Ahsoka sort of swung pretty far from the space opera canon, to be honest. Whereas with the other ones, like the Ranger show and Orlando, anything like them, I would sort of expect those to have a genre, and it would help to differentiate them from the other shows. Because you've got a problem, which is if all the shows are kind of similar and set around about the same time period, which a lot of these are, then you hit that problem where they start cropping up, and then they start sort of blending together and becoming a bit too much of a good thing or too much of that samey stuff. And yeah, of course, a heist TV show is maybe not going to appeal to the same crowd as Mandalorian, but it doesn't necessarily need to, and that doesn't make it a bad thing. If it sort of crosses boundaries a little bit, you're not going to get everything being the same all the time, and maybe that's where some other franchises have kind of fallen apart a little bit. I think if you stray way too far from the path and you make it way too dark, way too scary, way too, then okay, maybe you're going to lose a few people. I think likewise, if you make it too zany and too off the wall, you lose people as well. You've got to tread a fine line in a way, but I think they can definitely do it with these programs.
I think I would like to see it as well. I got so into the Western, and then I got quite into the samurais. I know they're related already because they're already influences from George Lucas, but I think I would like them to go out now, and I probably would watch them all. Something you said on a previous podcast, I think, sticks in my head as well, where you said because some of these are short, it helps that if there are only 4 Obi-Wan episodes, then you don't need to worry about it being this massive influential thing. It can just be dip your toe into this and have a look at it. And you don't have to invest all your time, and you don't have to worry about it impacting on so many other things because it's just going to be a small, brief thing. So with that to help them, dropping into these other genres, I think could be even more possible. And I would definitely watch Ahsoka being in a samurai film. So that's after what I've seen.
Yeah, if she's hunting down Thrawn as well as the villain, yes, yes, definitely. Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm sorry, I'll let you carry on.
Oh, I'm just going to quickly sneak in. I can see her as the Ronin chasing after the bad guy that has done the damage, and she's had to go rogue to do it. She's already left the Jedi Order. She's already jumped into the role of the Ronin. She is ready to play this, so it could be perfect. But yeah, sorry, Karen.
Yeah, exactly. The sort of rule breaker who can carry on. And what you were saying about episode length, not episode length, season length. I mean, I say so often on this podcast, and folk will be fed up of hearing me talk about it, which is these waste of time 5 or 6 episodes that there'll be of every Arrowverse season that there is out there, where they do nothing whatsoever. It's just there to fill the spot because the CW needs to sell adverts in that spot. The advantage that you've got with Disney Plus, and they have fully embraced it, and I love the fact they've done it, is they've done the number of episodes that they need to tell the story, and they've done the episode lengths that they need to tell the story. They do not need to stick to an hour format so they can sell a 4 advert block. They've not done that. They've done, does this story need 38 minutes? Yeah, okay, let's make it 38 minutes. Does this need an hour? Yes, let's make it an hour. Yeah. They stuck to that. And it means that they can edit it creatively, they can be strong in their decisions. They don't need to leave a load of fluff. They don't need to leave a load of B story in there that goes nowhere just to fill some time that they need. And I think they're better for it. And if they've embraced that, and hopefully they have with these other shows, as they've went to the writers, right, make it the length it needs to be. Okay, don't run away with the money.
Yes.
Don't run over the top with your episodes. Likewise, we don't want a 15-minute episode. But listen, just don't pad it. If you don't need it to be long-winded, don't make it long-winded. Don't give us loads of fluff in the middle that we don't want. That's pointless. Just take it out of the way. People will love the show anyway. If people love the show, they'll love the show. If you put tons of nonsense in the middle, folk will just drift off and lose interest.
Yeah.
So I think that's a way that they've made it stronger.
Well, bonus question then, because I literally just thought of something just now that has been a controversial point on many a discussion I've found myself either reading or being involved in, which is sort of a connection to this. What do we think we have to do? And one of the big ones is, do we have to get Jedi in? And there's one person who might listen to this, Craig, it's you, who might feel picked on when I say this, and I think I might be slightly picking on him, and he's not here to defend himself, so the tough, which is the Jedi. Do you have to have Jedi in something? And the argument is you shouldn't have to have Jedi in something, and I don't want to see Jedi in everything because, oh my God, I'm sick of Jedi. And some people are saying, why did they have to bring Jedi into The Mandalorian? Could you have not done it without it? But the more I look into this, the more I'm slightly bothered by that argument coming from certain corners of the internet, we won't name anybody, is because the cartoons seem to have made it okay. You know, there are so many cartoons out there, but haven't they all had Jedi in them? So every time we've ever done anything in the past, we've found it okay to put Jedi in. And now I'm thinking it seems completely unfair to say, oh, but the Mandalorian shouldn't have had Jedi. It's not really a question I can put at you, but I'm thinking that it just bothered me. I don't see why the Mandalorian couldn't have Jedi. It seems perfectly reasonable. But the question I would put you then is, where do you stand on that? Do you think we are forced to have Jedi in all of these things? And does it make it bad?
I don't think you necessarily need Jedi to make Star Wars work. I think the first season of Mandalorian proved that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember now if there was much in Solo. I think there was some sword fighting, but I don't think it was lightsabers. I think Rogue One, the most you had was Darth Vader at the end, maybe, in Jedi. I mean, I know that kyber crystals and everything were kind of heavily Jedi orientated, but I don't think the word Jedi really involved in that. I get what you're saying about the animated stuff is mainly centered around Jedi or trainee Jedi, as we had in Rebels. But I don't think it's necessary to make it a show. If they come up, then they do. I think your trouble in the time period with The Mandalorian is this is supposed to be after the Jedi Purge.
Yes.
This is after the Jedi Purge and after the Empire. This is meant to be after the fall of the Empire. You've got remnants of the Empire floating about.
Yeah.
This isn't supposed to be in a time where if you look under a rock you find a Jedi.
Yes.
And I can get why maybe people would be a bit upset about finding a Jedi being, oh, well, you speak to two people, and after speaking to two people, you've found a Jedi.
Yes.
You know, I can kind of get where they're coming from, but the show does pain itself to a slight extent on making Din sort of unaware of what a Jedi is. And part of that made it slightly more unbelievable for me.
Oh, really?
That, you've not heard stories about what happened to the Death Star. You've not heard, would people have heard of Luke Skywalker by this point? After what's happened, would word have sort of shimmied around a little bit, maybe?
Well,
maybe not.
I just thought not, actually, because he was one person who was on the bridge of a massive ship, and nobody would have known that. All the attention would have been on. Do you remember that princess who went through the jungle full of cute teddy bears with an army of people and started twatting stormtroopers? That would have gone in the news. And so, but when you think about it, though, I think I'm going to have to concede the point, though, because there used to be a Jedi Council in charge of various things, and I don't think they were secret.
No, it was never. I mean, they were, in the beginning in Phantom Menace, it's sort of touted as these are the law and order officials that come in. They're galactic law and order. Yeah. If situations are getting in trouble on planets and there's disagreements, then you've got Jedi negotiators, and if that doesn't go well, there's fighting Jedi.
Yes.
They're getting sent in as peacekeepers. They're a big part of the thing, and that's why I struggle when they go, "Oh, what, you mean like a magician?" And you go, "Really? Is it dropped to that point now already?" There's this myth of these conjurers, these sorcerers who were around. I think that's roughly the way it was put by the. I was going to say metalsmith. That's completely the wrong word. Armorer. There we go. That's the word. That's the way it was put by the armorer. There's these conjurers, these sorcerers, these people who were force sensitive, who could do things, and you sort of go, really, is it sort of downgraded to that now? That it's not really known about, but maybe it is. It's all down to legend. There's the majority of them got wiped out by the Purge, and there's not that many of them. So I get the argument when people say that it shouldn't be as simple as ask a couple of folk and a Jedi will pop up, because if that was the case, a lot more of the Jedi would be wiped out by that point. It wouldn't have taken the Inquisitors long, because they would ask two people, find a Jedi, and do their business. It wouldn't, Darth Vader wouldn't have had as hard a time trying to wipe out the Order. So I get it. But again, we come spinning right back round to what you said at the top of the show, which is soap opera.
Yeah.
These people, these characters are going to pop up.
Right.
I've already said my piece about whether it necessarily needed to be Ahsoka. And don't get me wrong, completely interested in seeing her show, really looking forward to what story they put forward with that. Whether it's the story that I'm expecting in my head or not is something completely different, but looking forward to that. I have no problem with Jedi turning up. I do think there's a slight point where you go, hang on, when is there too many Jedi surviving the Purge? But again, we've already said, universe is a big place, lots of Jedi.
I think, to be honest, even though I've brought this up as a challenge, I'm actually going to have to do the right thing and concede the point already, though, that after the Purge, you'd expect to see fewer Jedi. So I'm actually going to concede the point on that entirely. But, the one thing that I am glad about him not knowing what Jedi are is because it brings up it allowed for my favorite quote that I really want on a t-shirt, which is, "You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature and deliver it to a race of enemy sorcerers." And that's just my favorite line ever. And it's not possible unless you can call them Jedi sorcerers. So I will concede the point, but I liked what came out of it anyway. So I guess I'm doing a bit of a Donald Trump and not actually conceding properly. So in order to cover up my evil, let's move on to the next topic, which we might have already covered for the benefit of the audience at home. I've given Chris a list of characters that might be worth talking about. I'm going to ask him now, is there anybody on my list that stands out as somebody that you thought was, this was so well done, or I hated this person, and it's worth us talking about here?
Well, because I've kind of covered a couple of people on this list already, and
Indeed.
we've not really mentioned it much, I'm going to speak about Bo-Katan,
Cool.
which I really liked. So you've got Bo-Katan and the other Mandalorians are introduced in this, which, now I've said, did we necessarily need Ahsoka? Did we necessarily see Boba Fett? Did we necessarily need Bo-Katan? Maybe not. However, again, it's another Mandalorian that we know is out there and kind of makes sense to show up, which has been sort of my argument and has probably been the writer's argument throughout. It's another Mandalorian that we expect to come up. I think the way she meets Din, the way it's sort of explained of, you're one of them, when it comes to not taking the helmet off and everything like that. Like the way it's done. I like the fact that she's still wanting to liberate Mandalore. She's still fighting the fight from what appears to be a pretty small ground that she's got at the moment. She's slowly trading up to bigger ships. Don't get me wrong. She's obviously on an upward trajectory here, but she's starting out from pretty small. I mean, that seems to be her winning a bigger battle cruiser in the first episode where she's introduced. I can't remember the episode name. It's completely gone from me. But, she's winning her battle cruiser in that episode. And you see that there's a trajectory of movement. I liked seeing that character put back on screen, and the fact that it was the same actor doing it. Mm-hmm. You've got Katie Sackhoff back doing that character. Loved that. Thought it was really well, and she just fits it. Obviously when they made the animation, they obviously sort of based it roughly around her. So of course she fits the part when they put her on screen. As much as everything I've said about Ahsoka still stands in that way, I did like the fact that they let Katie Sackhoff come back to the part, and even the stuff that she put online as well. Her dad, who loved Star Wars a lot, she put a picture on Instagram after the final episode aired of her dad sitting on the bridge of that. It's not a Star Destroyer, it's like a battle cruiser, isn't it? She put a picture of her dad beaming on the side of the battle cruiser, just on the set. And that warmed my heart, because I'd love to take my dad to a battle cruiser. I'm not going to get the opportunity to do that, but made me smile a lot.
It's actually interesting to hear you speak about Bo-Katan that well, and I'm kind of pleased, because I wasn't actually sure about how she was used in the end. I think she was the most relevant person to be there, more relevant than Boba or Ahsoka, because she is a Mandalorian, and it's a show about Mandalorians, and we want to see some of the variations, and we want to see some of the trouble that Mandalorians have. And it's kind of difficult to establish that with only one of them, especially one who's definitely on the edge of things by his upbringing. So I definitely wanted to see more Mandalorians. Strangely, I didn't feel that her episodes hit as hard as the others, though. She needed to be there for the plot, and she was, and the plot was done well. It's just, it seems so unfair that Ahsoka got a really cool cinematic experience that was just like, watch me. There's no threat there. You are going to watch this episode, and the episode was right. I couldn't take my eyes off it. And I'm not sure Bo-Katan gets such a strong camera focus, and it's good and it works, but it didn't grab me as hard as that. And Boba Fett was just, the fan base likes you. Please be on camera doing cool things. And it was just so obvious that he got to do the cool things. And we've spoken about that already, so I'll move on. But he somehow he seemed to get more of the stage than seemed reasonable. So I felt like I wanted Bo-Katan to have more. But the thing is, she's going to get more, because one of the reasons I think she is the most critical part to this is, of course, she will step in to create the buddy movie with our main character, probably, I guess, in replace of the father-son family drama that we had with our main character in Grogu. So she's potentially there as a blatant setup for Series 3, and she's going to get all of her really cool stuff coming up. So I liked seeing her. I thought she was good. There's just some part of me that thought she was cheated out of a bigger stage. And I don't know what that stage would be, but I saw hints of it. My favorite parts of seeing Bo-Katan on stage were her interactions with the Mandalorian, which already shows how I think she's been downplayed slightly, because I enjoyed her in conjunction with another character rather than by herself. But to bring out those moments, when she does the, oh my God, don't be upset. We've just stepped on your little pride because you're Death Watch and you won't take the helmet off. And she just kind of calmly point out to him, sorry, we do something differently. I got to see Mandalorian politics. I get to see what it means to be a Mandalorian, where the problems are going to lie and where the schisms are going to lie in Season 3. Let's put a planet together as if we all completely agree on everything. I object. But we just fought together to get our planet together. I object. And it's exactly what happens in rebellions across the earth. Anytime you see, pick the best or the worst rebellion you've ever seen on planet Earth, as we've already got. A group of people come together with a common cause, saying, we will fight the evil. And what's the first thing they do when they defeat the evil? They all turn on each other. And you can just see that coming. And I'm just looking at it going, oh my God, this is going to be awful. These people that I'm seeing come together as friends are going to fight, and I'm going to hate it, but it's going to be real and I'm going to love it. So it was a promise of something more, but it could only be delivered with the Mandalorian. She couldn't get a cool scene by herself, which Ashoka could get. And then you got the bit at the end, which is possibly my absolute favorite moment that convinces me that Katie Sackhoff is a really good actress, and I should be watching for all of these moments. But the look on her face when the very evil guy on the floor laying there is explaining why she can't take it, and I'm loving this. This is like a party to me. And you see the politics of the Darksaber, and it's real world politics, because they actually acknowledge on there that it's the story. It doesn't have any spiritual powers. It's not a being created by midichlorians and can do this, that, and the other, and we should bow down and worship it like Jesus. No, it's a black lightsaber. But the politics and the story connected to that, oh yeah, you better pay attention to that, because if you don't, a whole planet of people are not going to like you. And you can just see, you just see like Katie Sackhoff's face, her head just turns slightly to the side, all of her muscles are clenching up, and she's like, I really want to take that and I can't. She's almost ready to explode and take the whole cruiser out with her. And it's this amazing moment. So I love what they did with her, but I think she got 2 moments on stage, and I think it's a promise for season 3. I'm actually glad, though. I think you saw more in it than I did, which is good, because I think she deserved more. But it does make me wonder: what do you reckon I've missed when watching those Mandalorian moments that I've not really appreciated properly? Is it with the other Mandalorians or the types that they are?
I think it was sort of the interaction, her being a bit of a leader. I understand what you're saying, where she didn't get her epic moment, or at least I can in my head. I'm trying to think of like an epic, the big showstopper moment where it was like, "Da-da! Here is this character." For anyone that's not seen this character before, or anyone that doesn't understand who this character is, here's the moment. Here's the episode about. I kind of get why they maybe didn't, when they're already doing like an Ahsoka episode almost, where the focus is, the camera lens is kind of drawn in a different direction from the way it normally would be during the show. And maybe you sit there and you go, okay, we can't do this again. And I think you're right as well about the best is probably yet to come from that particular storyline. And I think that's when you're going to get your moment. My sort of thing was one of the ones that I remember is in that final episode where they go to the sort of cantina, sort of diner, and everyone is willing to just fight. There's tension in that room, between her and Boba Fett. The way she's sort of dinging off insults towards him, going, well, you're just a clone. It's not really yours. It's not your dad's. It's not your, firing all that sort of stuff off. And then she's got this loyalty of the people around her who are willing to fight on her behalf, who's willing to go out there. And she's managing to pull them back. She's realizing that there's ways to potentially manipulate and use all this. And I enjoyed bits of that. I also enjoyed there was action in the scene where they took their new ship. That was just really well done. The sort of breaking in from the outside as it's taking off was like a different angle to a scene like that we've not really seen in Star Wars. I thought that was pretty cool and epic, the way that was done. I'm with you on the unification of Mandalore, the restoration of Mandalore, whatever we're wanting to call it, as a thing. That is such a difficult challenge when there's all these desperate, broken up groups out there. And remember that, the Mandalorian at the center of our story has now broken his rule twice.
Yes.
He's broken his rule the thing that ties them together is: have you taken your helmet off? Have you been seen by another living being? I think is the workaround that they used in season 1,
which I liked, but yes,
yeah. So you sit and you look at it and you go, he's broken his rule twice. Once you could almost say he was forced into it. That second time was clear choice. Is part of that. And interestingly, like if you're trying to bring you've got Bo-Katan and her people who are not following that sort of strict mindset, that strict rule set. You've got Din, who's that opening to that other to the creed. Now he's broken his rule. So how do you convince those people? Or do you convince those people by lying? And then what happens when they find out that you've lied?
I think
what happens when you get that moment? That potentially is a breaking point in the next season.
Well, that kind of makes it all add up in the same way then, doesn't it? Because all of this that they managed to give us with the Mandalorians has felt like the setup for season 3. All of the extra characters have felt like the setup for their own series, but all of the Mandalorian stuff has felt like the setup for season 3. Not that it hasn't been enjoyable, but it's been noticeable. But it does at least add up in the same direction, meaning there is a bunch of people going to come together and they're going to have trouble doing it. And how are they going to come together to fight the Empire? So that the way you describe it actually does make it sound really good because of that potential for conflict. But I think he's going to be the bridge. I mean, at the moment, he's the unwilling leader. You're the leader now. You've got the Darksaber. I don't want it. Tough. You've got the Darksaber. Get on with it. There's not a choice here. Do you want to save this planet, or is that just words? And then he's going to find, because he's got that position of power, that podium to speak upon, he'll find the Death Watch coming to him and saying, well, we've got a connection to you, but you're not one of us because of the helmet you took it off. You've got Bo-Katan and her people going, well, we've got a connection to you because you helped us get the Darksaber and you put us on the right path, but you're not one of us because you broke our plan and our leader can't have the Darksaber. So he's with all of them and he's with none of them. And that's the perfect position for us to be watching as the viewer, that politics play out, him being stuck in the middle, bridging them all, trying to reach out to all of them and potentially not managing to hold the hands of any of them. So I think the way you've described that says, I really want to watch season 3 because I'm really going to look forward to that politics. It brings me back to the thought that it's going to be a totally different show again, because how is he going to carry on going around the universe meeting individuals when he's got to be the center of the politics? So now I've also talked myself into, I've no idea what's coming in season 3, but I'm definitely wanting to see it based on what you've discussed. I might chuck one more thing at... Oh, no, sorry, you go on.
Oh, yeah, go for it. No, it's all right. I was going to say, it leaves him, like you say, at the end of the season, it leaves him in an interesting position because he's got no mode of transport to get about by himself in the first place at the moment, right? The ship is gone. Unless he gets himself something that has been impounded by Moff Gideon, maybe. There'll be some around that where, there happened to be a shuttle in the shuttle bay and it's, it's a former bounty hunters. It's perfect for you kind of thing. Okay, they can write around that. I think, interestingly, okay, so he's got the Darksaber. Maybe he doesn't want to rule. If no one else is going to take the Darksaber, then he's going to take it with him. So even if you begin the season with him reluctantly possessing the Darksaber, but wanting nothing to do with it, it doesn't mean that someone doesn't want the Darksaber and doesn't want to get it via combat.
Yes, he's almost enabling that. Yeah,
he's almost it's like if he goes away and he goes, right, I'm going back to my old stomping grounds. I'm going to do my own thing, or whatever he decides to do. He's still going to be carrying the sort of magnet that's going to draw trouble his direction from any Mandalorian or anyone that wants to lay claim is going to have to win it through combat. Or he's going to try and give it to them, and they're going to go, no, I'm going to fight you for it. I'm going to take you for it. So I think it's an interesting position. So you still potentially could get that little bit of going about and meeting people. And I suppose part of that going around and meeting people could be going around meeting other Mandalorian clans, outcroppings, villages. It's that trying to pull an army together, trying to convince people that the time to fight is now, and the reason why is because I've got the Darksaber now. So, are you convinced? No, we're not convinced. All right. Can I do something to help you out? Sure, defeat this massive sandworm thing for us. Okay. So you've still got elements potentially of what you've got, but I think you're right. I think the tone of the show next season is gonna swing slightly away from this space western and maybe move into something else. And I'm not too sure what, but I'm probably there for it at this point.
You have just awoken in me the idea, though, that he just throws the Darksaber away from thinking, I don't want this, so I'm just going to get rid of it. I just sell it in a pawn shop. And then a few episodes later, somebody turns up angrily and he says, what do you want? And the guy has obviously been to the pawn shop to buy the Darksaber and has to throw it at Din Djarin's feet and say, pick that up, because even though I bought it and I own it, I still need to fight you for it. And it'd be this crazy standoff where the politics is floating in the air, but it's almost comically awful because nobody's obeying the rules, and yet the people who really want to rule have to obey the rules. It could either be too ridiculous or it could be really brutally awful. But I'm going to look out for that. We are moving towards thoughts about season 3, though, which does bring us towards the close of what we're doing. But there is one thing that I cannot end this podcast without talking about, and you might have your own, so I'll ask you in a minute. But I've got 2 things. Sorry, tough. I need to talk. I'm important. You're not. Sorry. You've got a bounty on your head. I'm in charge. So
you're the boss.
The quick one is Baby Yoda less cute now he has a name? Is the very character of not having a name something that gives him, the property of not having a name something that gave him extra cuteness?
Good question.
Or is he just equally as cute to you now, irrespective?
I think he's equally as cute. The things he did were equally as cute as a character. I think the fact that he didn't have a name for the first season was okay, all right, I'll take it. I think the fact that they kind of got outraged and started going, it's not Baby Yoda, it's a Baby Yoda-like creature, or whatever they're like. It's called the child, everyone. It's the child. Call it the child. And we were like, nope, it's Baby Yoda, because it's a baby that looks like Yoda. Therefore, Baby Yoda is like, nice try with the paperwork, everyone, but no. We're not going to be calling it the child. We love that that's what you called it, and it's very, very cute. But you knew that as soon as it went on screen, everyone would go, it's a Baby Yoda. The fact that they didn't, produce enough toys for it early enough, I think is kind of hilarious. But I think it was still cute. And the moment, or the moments that you get, I think it even carries on into the next episode. I think it's the way they start the next episode, is it not? Where he's just saying the name
over and over,
over and over and over again to get the reaction, the little head tilt, every time. And it is just so sweet a moment. He's delighted that he knows its name. He's happy. He knows what to call it. He spent ages just going, oi, you. Yeah, you, oi, listen to what I'm saying. Yeah. And he's getting nowhere with it because it's distracted. And then he says its name and it gets instant attention. He's just like, yes, great.
I think that probably does you enough with the fan community to have them pay off your bounty so you get to live now. Because I'm pretty sure that everybody else on the internet thinks that he's equally as cute with the name as he was without, but I just thought I'd throw it in there. I just thought that was a potential possibility.
I'm interested in why did you think that it potentially diminished it in some way?
The whole idea of him being called Baby Yoda has the word baby in it. The whole idea of him not having a name gives him an extra vulnerability. And once you've got Grogu in there, he's a known quantity. And I think he's now protected. He's got a father figure, and that almost seems solidified when they can bond over his name of Grogu. And they're definitely father and son. when that is happening. You can almost see in the American context, they're pretty much almost throwing a baseball to each other at that point with the little silver ball thing that he keeps carrying around. So he seemed more real and less vulnerable. And part of me, I just thought, it was just a thought that flashed across in my mind. I thought, I wonder if the world sees it. Obviously, still cute, undeniably so. But I wonder if he's relatively slightly less cute because of that definition and that protection. I don't think I felt it. I don't think I felt it was a massive detraction, but it was just this random. I can't call it philosophical thought because it's certainly not that important. But it just one of those things where your imagination runs away with you. So I am pleased that you and the internet, probably at large, thinks he is still as cute.
Do you know the thing that would diminish Baby Yoda's cuteness for me, or Grogu's cuteness for me, would be if he started talking, or even if he started talking in Din's mind. Yeah. He started sending him messages.
Yes.
If anything like that started, I think that would diminish his cuteness. Like if he was sitting there eating random stuff in the back of the ship, and then you get the sort of voice in the head going, these are delicious. Yes. Then that, I think, would break it for me. That would be, no, Baby Yoda is over. It's done. You've killed it. It's not happening anymore. I think it's the fact that he doesn't talk and he needs that sort of protection. And because I can't remember what age they said he was, as much as they're saying that the race, obviously has a way longer lifespan than average. But is Baby Yoda not in his 40s or something like that? Or am I completely making that up?
So he is 50 whatever planetary years old, but his behavior is difficult to match up to any human equivalent, because 50 means nothing to us. We need to know what the human equivalent is. But he sounds like a newborn baby, but he acts a bit like a slightly older than a toddler, I think, because he can move around, he can see stuff, and he can express himself with action, even if he can't with words. But why then does he use baby noises? And I'm perfectly prepared to believe any description or explanation you come up with, like because you're in a race that ages differently to us, your physicality evolves quicker than your mentality. So suck it up. And I would go, okay, that sounds like good science, space science to me that I've never heard of. And you come up with any other reason why, like he's hiding from people, and the best way to hide is to sound like he's got nothing to say. Brilliant. Again, I follow that and that works, but it's too difficult to try and put a human equivalent age on him because of that. So the fact that he's 50 years old means nothing because we don't know what it is. And we can't work it out from Yoda, because if you kind of go, Yoda was 900 and Grogu's 50. So I'm actually going to get my calculator out. How old is Yoda in human years, do you reckon? Give me what you reckon he is. 180?
Oh, well, Yoda in human years.
What's his human equivalent?
Oh, I'm going to say like 150, 200.
Oh, so he's
human years.
Even older than that, right? Okay.
I think he's even older than that, because, the way that other Jedi talk about him is he's been training in the temple for years. Everyone remembers getting their lightsabers with Master Yoda kind of thing. So I'm saying he's got to be in his hundreds because of the age of the Jedi Masters, I'm thinking. Right,
so if he's 200 years old, that would make Grogu 11, and you're thinking, that's not right. So let's do him as if he was 150 divided by that. That makes Grogu 8. And again, it doesn't work. So you can't even really use Yoda's age to work out how. Well, maybe you can if somebody came online and said, well, actually, your equivalent human age is this, and you've been doing your maths wrong. Okay, you win. I can't challenge that, but I'm still saying it's too difficult to do it, even from the data we have. So, yeah, up for debate.
There will be canon somewhere that says what Yoda's equivalent. There must be.
Yeah.
There must be somewhere where it's scribbled.
Yes.
But I don't have that kind of knowledge stored away in my brain. I don't have much knowledge, and that's definitely not one of the things. I'm lucky I'm remembering what podcast I'm on right now if it wasn't written in front of me.
Well, you've done well for the time we had. So, yeah. It's good. But speaking of the time we had, I've got one more thing I want to throw at you before we finish. But is there a part of Mandalorian Season 2 that we have not spoken about that you loved? It doesn't have to be, but I wouldn't want to miss your favourite thing if there's a danger.
Favourite things, right? So my favourite, I'm going to spit out a couple of quick rapid fire ones for you, okay?
Do it.
So I really liked the snow spider stuff in The Passenger. Oh, yeah. I thought that was a really just cool little one-off kind of episode out there, exploring space kind of thing. So I liked that as a thing. I thought it was scary as anything, but really enjoyed that one. And the spiders were kind of similar to the ones that we saw in Rebels, so it was kind of cool seeing them brought to screen. The crate dragon in the first episode, fighting the crate dragon, that looked epic. It looked absolutely fantastic on screen. I've got no idea how they did it all and did it on a TV-style budget. Yeah. As much as these things are getting a lot of money thrown at them, that looked awesome. And for like a smaller thing that I liked and I thought was done well, Mayfield in the episode that name I cannot remember, when he has that scene with the former commander who sacrificed all those troops, in inverted commas, for the greater good, and the point in which he breaks.
Right.
Despite the fact he knows what the repercussions are going to be, despite the fact he knows that he's in there, he's like, no, you're not getting away with it. You know, it's like, you don't even remember me, do you? And goes for it. In that same episode, you also get Din removing his mask by choice to save the kid, which is a fantastic character development moment that is done really well. There's so many good things in that tucked into that episode. So yeah, there we go. That's my little quick fire list for you.
Well, I'm glad I didn't jump over that then, because you got loads. I feel like I've actually sniffed you the chance to probably talk about them. But oh well, never mind. What can you do? Invite you back to the Mandalorian Season 3, I guess, and then we can keep talking then. But I cannot let you go without talking. There was two big controversial points, I think, to the Mandalorian Season 2. I opened with one, which was the Luke cameo, and I'd like to finish on the other, as all proper bookending is done, which is to get your thoughts on the effect of the Mandalorian Season 2 on the recent films. And I specifically took a note of what you said in your intro on your connection, because you said you weren't necessarily into the most recent 3 films, you know, the actual third trilogy, because I've been seeing quite a lot of stuff going on, teased really early on when Dave Filoni was wearing his T-shirts of Ashoka's alive, question mark, and then Ashoka's alive, exclamation mark, and and everybody was sort of talking about, oh, what does this mean? What does it mean? And then as we start watching the Mandalorian, and everybody's talking about the fact that this character is coming back, and is this character really going to get killed off just so she can appear as a voice of the dead in the 9th film? Which, amusingly enough, I can't remember the name of the 9th film. Good grief. Help me out. Make me sound less stupid. What's the name of the 9th film?
So we had... Force Awakens was the first one.
Yep. And
then... Is the last one Rise of Skywalker?
That sounds right. Oh my god.
The last one is Rise of Skywalker. Now, what's the middle one?
Although it's the 9th one I want. It is the last one. So that's the one I need. I need Rise of Skywalker then.
He quickly Googles, embarrassingly.
Yeah, do it.
Star Wars films.
I'm totally leaving this in, by the way. I'm not cutting this out.
No, you can't do this. Okay, The Last Jedi is the middle one. The controversial one's The Last Jedi. There we go. In fact, I think the 3 of them are now controversial. But anyway, the controversial one at the time was The Last Jedi. There we go. Dear me.
Oh, have I even shown myself up completely wrongly? Which is the one where you get all the voices of the dead Jedi, and then was it actually the controversial one?
The Rise of Skywalker was all the different voices at the end, wasn't it? It was the big moment where,
So we've got a set of films saying that Ahsoka is definitely going to die. Or we logically assume that. And then we've got somebody who created this character, who loves this character, who has put a lot of effort in, who's on record as saying, the reason I didn't put her in series 1 is because I was so afraid of getting her wrong, even though he helped create her and should be the most confident person to bring her back. But is this person really going to allow her to fall into a setup where she does die just so she can get a crazy weird ghost cameo in a film that isn't maybe as popular as some of the others, if I can just chuck that out there without offending anybody. So there's been this controversy then that I've been slowly and boringly building up to is, will The Mandalorian and the other 10 shows that are coming with it undermine or rewrite those 3 films that come afterwards, potentially using the idea of time travel and alt verses that I think was introduced in Rebels or Clone Wars, which is
Rebels.
The one where...
I'm not making that mistake again. Rebels had it. Because controversially or uncontroversially, that's where Ahsoka comes back from, I believe.
Yes. So they've established in the cartoons already that we can play around with time and alt verses if we want to. So what do you reckon? Do you reckon that they are going to keep the canon of the 3 final films, or do you reckon they're going to take advantage of what the cartoons have established, that we can go into alt verses and other timelines if we want, and actually effectively say ours is the real timeline, which is different, we think better maybe, and get rid of the last 3 films?
Oh, it's difficult. As much as I did not particularly like the trajectory that those 3 films went on, and I think my main thing that I've argued against them is they just weren't plotted out. They don't flow sequentially. They don't flow even with the motivations of the characters. There's things that are picked up, dropped, picked back up again. There's things that are just rewritten, scribbled all over the place. I've got so many things that I didn't follow with them, and they should have stuck with the same writers throughout, or they should have had the same team throughout to make sure that the films had a kind of flow. That's where my argument with those films are, really. I think they've got time travel as an element in Star Wars. It's been seen. It's possible that they could do it. I think in some sectors it's kind of a bit of wish fulfillment. It's someone going, oh, please pretend that the other 3 didn't happen. Please pretend that please give us another film with Harrison Ford and everyone in it that says that this wasn't true. I'm sorry, you're not going to get that opportunity. I really don't think you are, because on that same hand, on that same thing that they're wanting to do there, are you wanting more CGI Han Solo, CGI Leia, CGI Luke? Is that what you're genuinely hoping for out of a time travel time twist, or are you going to set it earlier? How are you? I don't know. I really, really don't know. I kind of don't want them to at the same time. I was really disappointed with the way it finished out. I think there's some fantastic elements in those films. I'm not going to say that the whole thing was a disaster. It wasn't. There were elements of it that were great. There were little bits of story that if they had been followed through, I think would have been fantastic. I think the problem is that some things were just let go. But I don't think you can erase it. It's the same way as people wanting to go back and redo prequels.
Yeah.
It's some people now are looking at the prequels as a heyday in comparison to the recent 3. After panning them for years, they're now going, actually, on a rewatch, I've decided that my new favourite order of running films is this. So, yeah, they could do it. Will they do it? I don't think so. Will it be through the force of the TV universe that they do it? Again, I don't think so. I think you've still got the potential of great stories set before those films. I still think you can run off and you can do, Solo, okay, was a bit of a disappointment, but I really liked Rogue One.
Yeah,
I think the fact that they're revisiting some of the characters in the TV universe sort of in this in-between period that we've got, the fact that they've included Luke in The Mandalorian, does kind of open the door a little bit to, we could set something that's in between these. We could have a 6.1 of a film. We could do that. Yeah. There's nothing that says that they can't insert things that happened before.
Yeah.
And I think people need to remember that what you've seen now doesn't diminish your original viewing of the other films. I have great memories of watching the original trilogy. I've got great memories of doing that. It doesn't take those away.
No.
Those films are still there, as much as they keep getting tweaked with every once in a while. Those films are still there. There's probably, another hour's worth of dialogue or something that's been edited in the time that we've done this podcast. But the films are still there. You can still watch them if you want. So, I get that they maybe wish that time travel would be involved, but maybe isn't necessary. I mean, what's your thoughts on it?
Or, I was just thinking of my wording on this, and I'm actually going to prevent myself from answering because
what?
I don't want to end up on the dark side at the end of this podcast.
Oh, what?
So I can't.
But I want the dark side to,
No, I can't answer. I can't answer that question. That
release your hate. Come on.
So
release your hate.
That'll have to come out in a different podcast, I think, because it's not good. No, we need to end on the light. So.
All right. Okay.
As closing thoughts, I'm going to say, to end on the light side of things, I was totally involved in the Mandalorian season 2 as I was with Mandalorian season 1, even though I got knocked off course for a bit. It did enough to make me watch the first 4 episodes again, and then I was actually totally on board. And I'd already loved the end anyway. Everything about episodes 5 through 8 I really enjoyed, and then I was able to go back and actually really enjoy episodes 1 through 4 again on a second watch. So I'm totally into seasons 1 and 2, and based on the stuff we've been talking about, despite some trepidations about where this goes, now it kind of has to change tack, even time jump maybe into season 3. Between our chat here, I've actually managed to talk myself into being very excited about season 3. So I really want to end my own commentary on the light side. So I'm going to do that, and that's going to be my word on it. So you can give me your last thoughts on it and see if you want to go light, dark, or even the grey side of the neutral force.
Oh,
yeah, that's an option
neutral
now.
Force.
Yeah.
The neutral force, yeah, that is a way. I'm the light side. I'm with you. I'm looking forward to this next season. It's interesting that you bring in a time jump, actually, because I didn't even... Because it's sort of run sequentially so far, I didn't even think about doing a time jump, because like I said, at the end of this, he's not got a ship, he's standing there with a darksaber on that bridge. Like the next season could pick up immediately from there, or it could do the 5 years later in a galaxy a long time ago. I'm looking forward to the next season. I'm looking forward to seeing what the adventures are, what the state of play is at that point. I hope that they really hone in on the Mandalorian. I feel that they've done their launches for the other TV shows this season. Let's focus on the Mandalorian. This third season could be his final season. This could be the completion of a journey of this character. In my head, that's what this season coming up is. But maybe that's just because they've not introduced the new shiny to me that he's going to take forward after this. But that seems like finding his people, taking them home, is kind of his thing. It's an extension of his story with Grogu, really, on a grander scale, and I'm kind of all for that.
I feel good that we've all ended on the light side. So, taking heart to that positive note, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you also to the YouTubers whose Mandalorian themes you'll hear at the start and end of this podcast. DSC for his guitar cover and Artificial Fear for his metal version. Links in the show notes. And to all the listeners, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and of course, good night.